This is our third class on the Maamar, Beshah Sha'ala Moshe Lamorem, Tafshin Chav Hey. And so far we've learned nothing. All we've done is had two introductions. The first introduction argued that when you get to the very essence of this Maamar, you discover that the deepest thing of everything is a Yid, and everything begins from a Yid. And the second introduction, the last class that we had, talked about the idea of Pshitos. Before I begin to read the Maamar inside, I want to repeat a little bit about this idea of Pshitos and what I explained, what we discussed last time in the Shir. But of course, I must say this. I'm learning a Maamar with you. And obviously, if I'm learning the Maamar with you, I prepared it. I tried to understand it. This is an incredibly difficult Maamar. And the way I'm teaching you the Maamar is the way I understand it. My Havana b'derech efsher. This is not kablu daiti. This is not. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is emes. I'm saying that this is how I understand the Maamar. And if somebody else has a better pshat or a different pshat or a kasha on my pshat, I certainly would love to hear. You can send a message on the site or in some other way to inform me of how you understand the Maamar or what questions you have on the Maamar, or at least the way I taught it and so on. What I explained to you last time is a basic idea, a fundamental idea. And that is that the whole idea of Chochmas HaKabbalah is to bring together Ein Sof and Eilumis, to bring together godliness and worldliness. Kabbalah talks about Elokus, godliness. Chassidus explains Elokus using the mashal of Oyer, of light, and Oyer Me'ein HaMoyer. And there's an obvious understanding, it's common sense, it's logical, to argue that godliness and worldliness are opposites. Worldliness is about self, godliness is about revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about dveikus, and they're opposites. They're also opposites because world is limited and complex and formed. Godliness is infinite and plain and one. Nevertheless, the whole inyan of Chochmas HaKabbalah is to explain, is to reveal, and to bring forward. Ultimately, it's about the truth. In other words, that it actually happens. It's not just a philosophy, but it's a reality. But in Chassidus, we're trying to understand Teirehi v'lilmad ani tzarech, to understand the bringing together of godliness and worldliness, of Ein Sof and Eilumis. And B'Klolos, basically, that's what the world of Atzilus is. Atzilus is the place where Ein Sof and Gavul, Ein Sof and Kelim, Ein Sof and world converge, they come together. Higher than Atzilus, the world is completely overwhelmed by the Ein Sof. Lower than Atzilus, the worldliness causes that the Ein Sof should be in a state of Helim. And in Atzilus, the godliness is revealed, and the worldliness is not overwhelmed. The worldliness actually receives the godliness. But in this notion of godliness being revealed into worldliness, there's a lot of different aspects, different shittas. And the question is always going to remain, how does godliness and worldliness converge? So we talked about the Gimel Shites, the idea that the Kelim are still Maitzel, the idea that the Eid is not really Ein Sof, the first two Shitas. And then the third Shita that no, Atzilus is a combination of two opposites, Ein Sof meets Kelim. But in the third Shita itself, we had two Shitas, the Shita of Eid is Pshutim. That the Eid meets Keli, and the Keli becomes uplifted to some extent because they're opposites. And the Shita of Eidus Mitziyarim, the Shita that the Eses Firis and Eid, that not coming from the Rishima and from the Tzimtzum, but coming from the Ratzon, which allows for Eid and Keli to meet, even though they're opposites, because since there's Sfiris in Oir, when the Oir meets the Keli and the Eid are able to converge and to join. So the idea is that Atzilus is the meeting of two opposites, of Ein Sof and Kelim, and that the meeting of these two opposites should be as harmonious, as as fusing, as becoming one as possible. So what we discussed last week was that really the highest inyan that could possibly be is the idea that you could have eides pshutim that are also mitziyadim. In other words, the idea that the light reaches the keli, because the light is already part of keach hagavul, like it says in Samach Vov about the kav, means that the light is able to meet the keli because the light has been changed and made into a gvul, gvulified, if you will, in order to be able to meet the keli. The whole chiddush is, the whole novelty is, the whole challenge is that the oir should remain ein safe and still meet the keli. In other words, on the one hand, the idea of Eidos Mitzayadim, the light having a spheris, explains how the Eid and the Keli can converge. On the other hand, the idea that the Eid, even though it has spheris, is still Pashat, should meet the Keli is very, very important. In other words, the whole concept is two opposites should come together. Godliness and worldliness should come together. And the more opposite they are, the more meaningful it is, the more of a chiddush it is, and so on. In other words, the more ein safe and the more pashut the oir is, and the more gvul, and the more is chalkos, and the more agbola, and the more tzir there is to the keli, the bigger chiddush it is that you're bringing together these two opposites of eir and keli. So if you have oir, which is eses sfiris and oir, and eses sfiris and oir, as we discussed last week, is still eses sfiris pshutim, like it says, the mashal for Shmai and Naftali and Hil V'Shama, as I explained. So when Eses Fides and Eid, which even though we say that the Eid has Eses Fides, we also say that the Eid is Pashat, meets Keli, it's a Chiddush. But I explained to you that in this Maimer we're going to introduce a new concept of Eidos Mitzayadim. Because in this Maimer we're going to learn about Eidos Mitzayadim that are Pshutim Mamish. This Maimer is going to further accommodate this idea that two opposites, an Eid which is Ein Safe and Pashat, and a world which is Hischalkus and Agbola and Tziur and so on, should come together in an even more profound way than the concept of Eidos Mitzayadim which we discussed. Because what this Maimon is going to teach us is that there's a concept of Ein Seif, which is absolutely Pashto B'tachas Apshitos, like Seviv Kalalmin, or maybe higher than Seviv Kalalmin. And nevertheless, in the Ein Seif, which is Pashto B'tachas Apshitos, there's going to be the inyan of Sfiris that are coming forward and going into Kalim. But not that the Ein Seif in its Pshitos is going to come into Kalim because there's Sfiris in the Ein Seif. But that because there are Sfiros, the Pshitos of the Ein Seif is going to come into Kalim. In other words, the Sfiros are the Chitzonius, because the Sfiros exist by Chitzonius, so the Ein Seif in its Pshitos, which is the inyan of Pnimius, is going to come into Kalim. In other words, the direction that this Maimon is headed in is to explain how into Kalim are going to come an Eir, and not only a light which is limited, not a light which is formed, and not even a light which is Esesfiris and Eir, but Esesfiris which is Ein Safe Mamish. And again, I'm using these words, even though maybe I'm overstating it, like the Madreg of Save of Kalalmin, but they're also going to be able to come into Kalim. This is what we were discussing. So let me just say one more time what I just said in a few words, and then I'm going to start to read the Maimed with Peirik Dalid, which is on page Reish Pei Gimel. And B'lineda, my plan is that we're going to learn straight through, all the way until Peirik Tes, and then in Mitzvah Hashem we'll go back and we'll learn the beginning and the end of the Maimed. That's the plan. Okay, so let me just say it one more time. The idea is that Kabbalah teaches about the meeting of godliness and worldliness, and godliness and worldliness are opposites. And in order for them to meet, accommodations have to be made, tzimtzumim have to happen. But the highest thing possible is that the highest idea of godliness should be able to come into worldliness. And this Maimir, with its discussion of Kamayim Aponim Laponim, is going to explain a whole new dimension of godliness and worldliness converging, because we're not going to be speaking about godliness which has been conditioned, modified, in order to take on Svidis and Gvul, in order to meet Keli, but to the contrary, godliness in its Pshitas is going to meet Kalim. And the way this new idea is going to be introduced is by speaking about Kamayim Aponim Laponim. And I just want to say again what I told you last week, that in this Maamar we discover a Pnimius and a Chitzonius. And the Pnimius of the Chitzonius that this Maamar discusses is almost like as if there's two Seder Shtalshalos. There's a Seder Shtalshalos which Hashem made before people, before Avodah, and that's the Chitzonius. And there's a Seder Shtalshalos which happens Kamayim Aponim Laponim Kein Leiv Ha'adam Al Adam through the Avodah of people. And the notion of the Pshitas of Ein Seif coming into Kalim because of the effect of Kamayim Aponim Laponim, this is the Pnimius, or like so to speak, the Oyer Chayzer, the second concept of a Hishtalshalos where Eir comes into Keli. And it provides, it explains how a very high Madrega of Ein Seif is able to come into Keli. This is the end of the introduction, and now let's go to the Maamar. So the Rebbe begins in Perek Daled, V'yuven Zeh Behegdim, in order to explain the questions that the Rebbe had about Kishalom, Meshal Amorim, which we did not learn yet. We have to preface first, Masha Kosov, Kamayim Aponim Laponim, Kein Leiv Adam Al Adam. Just like water reflects the face that looks into the water, so the heart of man reflects the heart which looks into the first person's heart. Now, as we're learning the pasuk right now, Kamayim Aponim Laponim is a mashal, and Kein Leiv Adam L'Adam is a nimshal. In other words, Kamayim Aponim Laponim means bepashtus. Physical water reflects the face that looks into it. Similarly, the heart of a person reflects the heart that looks into it. Omavu Arabi Chasidus, so Chassidus explains. The Leiv Ha'adam L'Adam, the second half of the pasuk, which in the meantime is the nimshal. The heart of man reflects the heart of the man that looks into him. It doesn't only mean two physical human beings. That when you have certain feelings towards that fellow must reciprocate same feelings towards you, because a heart feels and reflects a heart. In other words, the leiv ha'adam, the heart of one person, because he loves his fellow, love evokes and arouses the love of his fellow back to him. Begashmiyas, I remember the Rebbe once said about a certain person who was displeased with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, I don't understand. It says in the Pasuk, Kamayim Aponim Laponim Kein Leiv Adam Al Adam. And the Rebbe said very passionately, I love him. So the male, the kasha becomes, if I love him, how is it possible that he doesn't love me reciprocally? Because the Pasuk in Mishlei says that when somebody loves you, you have to love them back. Not you have to, but derech pekuda v'tzivui, you're going to love them back based on this principle, the teva of Leiv Adam Al Adam. Says the Rebbe Ella, but this nimshal, Leiv Adam Al Adam, again, let's talk it over again. Kamayim Aponim Laponim is a mashal. Water reflects a face that looks into it. And the nimshal is a heart reflects a heart. Says the Rebbe, this nimshal, that a heart reflects a heart, is not only talking about a physical heart, elegam al adam atachta and v'adam elyon, the man below and the man above. The kfiyeifen ha'avedim, based on the work and the service, the worship. Shal adam atachta, a man below, isarus l'tata, the arousal from below. Kain hu eifin ha'isarus l'eila, this is also mirrored in the arousal from above. In other words, hamshacha me adam ha'elyen la'adam atachta. What's reciprocated from the supernal man, from the man above to the man below. Kamayim Aponim Laponim, like water, like a face looks into the water and the water gives that face back. So a heart of a human being looks into the heart of Adam Ha'elyon, and the heart of Adam Ha'elyon looks back into Adam Ha'tachten, reciprocally in the same way. And I just want to say, and I think I mentioned this earlier, the expression Adam Ha'tachten is found in Tanya. And it's talking about a person, a human being is called Adam Ha'tachten. Tanya Perek Daled, chapter 4, it talks about the relationship between Adam Ha'tachten and Adam Ha'elyon. And Adam Ha'elyon goes on Atzilus. And the Rebbe says, Kein Leiv Adam Al Adam means one human being's heart to another human being's heart. But included in this idea of one human being's heart reflecting the heart of another human being is the human being's heart reflecting, touching, and influencing the heart of the supernal man, Adam Ha'elyon. And then the Adam Ha'elyon is reflecting it back down on the person. So we have, so far, a mashal and two nimshals, right? The mashal is water reflecting a face, and the nimshal is one human being's heart reflecting another human being's heart. And the second nimshal is that the physical human being influences the supernal human being, supernal Adam, and then reflected back down. And now the Rebbe says something very important, really very, very important. And it's going to seem inconsequential initially. But in the nimshal and the askola, this is very, very, very important. V'yesh leima. 4 lines from the bottom of page Reish Pei Gimel. When you correlate, when you compare the nimshal, that the heart of a person reflects the heart that looks into his, lemayim haponim leponim, and we compare it to the way a face will look into water, and that the water will give that same face back to the person looking into it. What's the reason for the mashal and the nimshal? So he says the following: the kameisha b'mayim haponim leponim, in the mashal of a person looking into the water and having the water reflect his face back to him. The fact that when he looks into the water, he sees the same face, he radiates to the water. In other words, he sees his own countenance, his own likeness. When he looks into the water, listen carefully now, Nasim, and the Rebbe says in parenthesis, Nirim b'hamayim tzuras haponim ha'mastakelas b'hem. When you look into the water takes on your likeness, your countenance. So now your countenance is in the water, at least nidim. And then, if it's zu nidas ahakach l'odam ha'mastaka, and then the water gives you back your own face. In other words, what the Rebbe is trying to say is that when you look into the water and you see yourself, you're not seeing yourself. When you look into the water, you impress yourself on the water, that's A. And then the water gives you back your countenance. Now, how it is physically in reflections is a physical thing and a limited thing, has to do with light and so on. But then higoyin and pnimis ha'anyanim, the way the pasuk is written, kamayim aponim leponim ken lev adam alo adam, the idea is when you look into the water takes on your countenance. And when the countenance that you've imprinted into the water is radiating back to you, that's coming not from your countenance, but from the water itself. Continues the Rebbe, Kainhu belev ha'adam la'adam. Same is true in the notion of a heart of a human being reflecting the heart of another human being. The fact that through work, and arousal from below, turn to page Reish Pei Daled now, shall adam matachna of the man below. Nase isarusa deliyela v'hamshach. It affects a reciprocal arousal on high and a bringing down me adam ha'elyon from the supernal man, from Atzilus, l'adam matachna to the man below, which is Asiyah. So the Rebbe says, who? The reason for this is Ki ha'aveda the adam matachta, the work, the service, the worship of the man below, Eila milmata lamayla, ascends from below to above, le adam ha'elyon, into the supernal man. Listen carefully now. Vayedei zeh nase boy, and through this it affects an imprinting of the adam matachta in adam ha'elyon, dugmas inyan zeh, in a way that reflects what the person below is. V'yachakach, and then as a second aspect, nimshach inyan zeh, the idea, this idea, parenthesis, shenasa b'adam ha'elyon, which was imprinted, which was affected into the adam ha'elyon, it comes back down, milmayla lamata, from heaven to earth, adam matachta, to the person below. So when the nimshal, this is more important than in the mashal. When you serve Hashem, and everything we do, da'ama lamayla mimach, right? Whatever you do down here is reflected lamayla. And all the other Maamar Chazal, they say the same thing, including this pasuk. What you do imprinted itself on Atzilus, and Atzilus now has your countenance. And then when it gives it back to you, Atzilus isn't giving back to you what you gave Atzilus. Atzilus is giving back to you what Atzilus is. As Atzilus is reflecting what you put into it. But it's not you getting back what you gave Atzilus, you're getting back what is Atzilus. Ula Haisif, and the Rebbe adds, the b'mashal hamayim, in the mashal of water. This is not so precise. In other words, this idea that there's two steps. Number one, you make an impact onto the water. And number two, the water gives you back its self. And therefore, in the nimshal, number one, you make an impact, an imprint on Ein Sof. And number two, Ein Sof gives you back that imprint. Meaning to say that Ein Sof is not just giving back what you gave it, it's giving back itself. So the mashal is not exactly as good as the nimshal. The b'mashal hamayim, in the analogy of water, the fact that when you look into the water, you see your own countenance. It seems that way. Because in the water, there's no face. When you go away, that face is gone. So even though the mashal is, when you look into the water, you impress yourself into the water. And then when the water looks back at you and gives you back your own face, it's a second inyan, but in the mashal, it's not entirely that way. However, in the nimshal, the work and the service and the worship we do below, Nasadugmis inyan zeh ba'adam ha'elyon. It affects an imprinting of what we have done in Elatzilus, in Elakus, in itself. And when Elakus gives it back to Asiya, Elakus is not giving back to Asiya what Asiya gave it. Elakus is giving back to Asiya what Adam Elyon is in Asiya. V'leirak shenira king. Okay? So, what did we learn in this paragraph? We learned a mashal and a nimshal, that water reflects a face, a heart reflects a heart. And this includes how Atzilus reflects what Atsiya shows it and gives it back. And we also discussed that this notion of reciprocity, of giving back, is that the Elyon takes on the countenance of the Tachtain, and when the Elyon gives it back to the Tachtain, it's not simply returning the countenance that it received, it's giving back itself. Now the Rebbe goes on and he says, Vihine. So far, in the Pasuk, Kamayim Aponim Laponim, Kein Lev Adam Ala Adam, Kamayim Aponim Laponim is a mashal, and Kein Lev Adam Ala Adam is a nimshal. And now the Rebbe changes his mind again, right? Just like he said before, that Kein Lev Adam Ala Adam doesn't only mean Gashmis, it means Ruchnias. Now we're going to add that not only does Kein Lev Adam Ala Adam mean Ruchnias, but Kamayim Aponim Laponim also means Ruchnias. Just like we explained in the second part of the previous paragraph. The heart of a person reflects the heart that looks into him. Is not only a physical and psychological phenomena. Elegam beruchni is also a metaphysical and mystical phenomena. But Adam ha'elyon v'Adam ha'tachton, this is a supernal man and the man below, that they reflect each other's heart. Says the Rebbe, same is true the first half of the pasuk where it says Kamayim Aponim Laponim, as water reflects a heart. And of course the point is that even though the concept of water reflecting a heart is a very simple physical mashal, and Kein Lev Adam L'Adam is much more involved psychological nimshal, says the Rebbe, don't let that fool you. In the words Kamayim Aponim Laponim, there's also one yif in Kabbalah. And what is it? As a kosev is true also in the first half of the pasuk. Kamayim laponim laponim, when the water reflects the face that looks into it, taiches the Rebbe shemedaber leila kamayim kipshutim. It's not speaking only about physical water. Elagam b'mayim al yenim, supernal water, the waters of Atzilus. Hainu, what this means is hapshitos the ein seif shalamayla mitzirah. The plainness, the transcendence of ein seif, which is above the countenance, the form of other. All we have discussed so far is Atzilus. Atzilus is Adam. A human being is called Adam Atachten, and the two Bnei Adam, the two Adams, you can't call them Bnei Adam, the two Adams interface. But Ein Seif is called Loi Adam, is not a man. It's called Ma'od, it's infinite, it's plain, it's one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's one with the Rebbe, and so on. And Kamayim Aponim Laponim means the convergence of the Pshitas of Ein Seif and Adam Ha'elyon. Says the Rebbe, Hainu Apshitas the Ein Seif Shalamayla Mitzir, that there's the plainness of Ein Seif which is higher than Atzir. In other words, before we talked about Asiya and Atzilus, now we're going to be discussing Atzilus and the Pshitas of Ein Seif, which is Keser. That Ve'inyin, Hamayim Aponim Laponim Hu, the notion that a face is reflected by the water in which the face looks, is Ta'agam Sha'eid Ein Seif U Poshe B'tachas Apshitas. Even though it ain't safe, and of course we're speaking now much higher than Atzilus. And I suggested before that perhaps this is talking about Seif of Kalalman, but I don't want more trouble than I already have. But we're talking about a Madrege of Ein Seif, which is Pshitos. Ve'ein Beishayech Tzir L'Sfiras, has no connection to the form of Sfiras, which is a lower level or a level of Mamalik Kalalman. Says the Rebbe V'Komakim nevertheless. Al Yedei Alo Asman De HaSfiras Le'ein Ein Seif. Just like Adam Atachta looks into Adam Ha'elyon and Adam Ha'elyon gives it back, Adam Ha'elyon looks into the Moed Ha'elyon, to the Pshitas of Ein Seif, and the Pshitas of Ein Seif gives back to Eses Sfires. Says the Rebbe, Ayedei Halo Asman Da Sfiras Ein Seif, through the arousal from below. Man is, of course, an abbreviation for Mayin Nukfen, feminine waters, which is the same basic idea as Esrusa Delatata, of the Sfiras to the Pshitas of Ein Seif, Nasim Bei Sfiras. In Ein Seif there's Sfiras, and the Rebbe calls them Eser Sfiras Haginuzes, the 10 hidden spheres. The 10 hidden spheres are imprinted on the Pshitas of Ein Seif by the spheres of Atzilus looking at the Pshitas of Ein Seif. Now I'm going to pause again, and again tell you something which some people may be very unhappy that I'm saying, because they may feel like I'm embellishing a Maamar, I'm making up Pshat in a Maamar. But this is how I'm teaching it to you. When the Eibishter created the world, he created spheres. from the top down. Before the Eibishter created Sfiras HaGluyos, he created Sfiras HaGnuzos. Everybody understands that before you have revealed Sfiras, you have hidden Sfiras. You have hidden Sfiras Lifnei HaTzimtzum after Ratzon, you have hidden Sfiras in Ak, you have hidden Sfiras in Akudim, and Akudim until Atzilus. But the hidden Sfiras precede the revealed Sfiras, because the revealed Sfiras are actually formed and limited and in vessels, and the hidden Sfiras remain theoretical and above. But the hidden Sfiras, the Sfiras HaGnuzes, come first, and the Sfiras HaGluyos follow. Here, the Rebbe is saying that the Sfiras HaGluyos come first, and the hidden Sfiras follow. In other words, this is exactly the opposite of the classic understanding of how Seder Ishtalshalos works. The classic understanding of Seder Ishtalshalos works is first there's a higher level and there's a lower level. First there's Eses Sfiras in a state of Pshitas, which is called Gnuzes. And there's so many Madregas in Gnuzes, Ein Metzias in Gnuzes, Yesh Metzias in Gnuzes. There's Shame and there's Shemes and there's the Mashlo Keches Atzmim and Keches Ne'alamim. They're all different Madregas in Sfiras HaGnuzes. And those Sfiras come before the Sfiras HaGluyos. Why? Because a higher level and a more sublime and abstract level precedes a lower level and a more manifest and formed level. Here it's faket, that because there is another Matachta that's reflected in the other Ma'elyin, and the other Ma'elyin is reflected in the other Makadmin, right? It's not called other Me'eda Elyin. Therefore, there's going to be Eses Sfiras in it. So what I am suggesting, and the way I'm teaching it to you, is based on the Lishenas that the Rebbe uses later on in the Maamar, that there's a Pnimius and a Chitzenius. When the Eibishter created the world, he created Seder Ishtalshalos. That entire Seder Ishtalshalos is Chitzenius. And the Seder Ishtalshalos of the Eibishter made it from heaven to earth has the problem of how Ein Seif, Sfiras, and Gvul and Kalim could get together. And their solution, their Chitzenius dissolution, is that the Oid has some kind of a Hitztairus. But after Kvayachal, the Eibishter creates Seder Ishtalshalos from the top down. And first there's no Sfiras, and then there's Sfiras HaGnuzes, the Madrega of Shame. And then there's Sfiras HaGnuzes, Madrega of Shame Mois. And then there's Madrega of Sfiras HaGnuzes like Tzurach HaLomesh. Then there's Madrega of Sfiras HaGnuzes like Shalhavas HaKshura B'Gacheles. Shabbatecha Gacheles. And then you have Sfiras HaGluyos. Once you have Sfiras HaGluyos, those Sfiras HaGluyos look back towards the Pshitas of Ein Seif, impress themselves on the Ein Seif, and now you have a second concept as a Sfiras HaGnuzes. And as you'll see in this Maamar, the second concept of Sfiras HaGnuzes is different than the first concept of Sfiras HaGnuzes, because the second concept of Sfiras HaGnuzes is much more pashut. And the second concept of Sfiras HaGnuzes converges, brings together the Pshitas of Ein Seif and the Tzir of Sfiras in a much deeper way than the first concept, the Chitzonius concept as a Sfiras HaGnuzes and as a Sfiras HaGluyos. Because the Chitzonius concept comes together because of Tzir in there. And the Pnimius of concept is because of Pshitas in it, as you'll see later on in the Maamar. But I appreciate how controversial what I'm saying is, but I don't know how else to explain the Maamar. So to say one more time, when it says here that Ayadei Allah, I'm on page Reish Pei Daled, the second paragraph from the top, the fifth line, Ayadei Allah Asman da Sfiras Ein Seif, by the Sfiras of Atzilus looking into the Pshitas of Ein Seif, which is higher than Atzilus. Nasim Bey, so you have in the Pshitas of Ein Seif, Sfiras, Sfiras HaGnuzes. I am suggesting that these are not the same Sfiras HaGnuzes of Seder Ishtalshalos. Look in footnote 30. V'hagam Sfiras HaGnuzes hoyu lifnei Sfiras HaGluyos, even though Sfiras HaGnuzes are the source of the Sfiras HaGluyos. How could Sfiras HaGluyos create Sfiras HaGnuzes? Particularly the idea of the Pshitas of Sfiras HaGnuzes. Says the Rebbe, hoyu zeh adei Allah asman minei ubei. This is from the arousal that happened minei ubei. Minei ubei, in other words, the from below to above, the way it's a part of a lakus. And let's continue. The Sfiras HaGnuzes, and these 10 Sfiras, Heim Kimei Moker, they're like a source. Shemehem Nimshochim Sfiras HaGluyos, which come the 10 revealed Sfiras. And again, I'm suggesting that you have Sfiras. You have the way the Sfiras look at the Pshitas of Ein Seif and produce Sfiras HaGnuzes, and then how the Sfiras HaGnuzes reveal themselves into the Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos. In other words, like there's two concepts of Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos. The Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos as they are before the Halo Asman, and Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos as they are as a consequence of the Halo Asman. Al derech, it's similar to Shnei Ha'anyonim, the two ideas of Kamayim Aponim Laponim B'mayim Kipshut. The two ideas of a face reflecting a face as it is in the physical water. In other words, the Rebbe says, the Adam Ha'elyon, the Sfiras of Atzilus, look at the Pshitas of Ein Seif and impress on the Pshitas of Ein Seif the Sfiras that are Gnuzes. And then those Sfiras that are Gnuzes reveal themselves back into Atzilus. So there's two things here. The first thing is how the Pshitas of Ein Seif has impressed upon it the Esses Sfiras. And the second idea is how the Esses Sfiras that have been impressed on the Pshitas of Ein Seif from the Sfiras HaGeluyos are reflected back down into the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes. In other words, there's 2 points. Just like in the mashal of water, when you look into the water, the Rebbe said before that this is not exactly so true in the mashal, but nevertheless we articulate it this way. To understand the nimshal, when you look into the water, you leave your mark in the water. And then when the water gives your countenance back to you, it's a separate idea. Similarly, when there's an imprinting of Sfiras in the Pshitas of Ein Seif, the Ein Seif takes on the Sfiras. And when the Pshitas of Ein Seif gives you back those Sfiras, it's not giving you back the Sfiras that you gave it, it's giving you back the Pshitas of the Ein Seif. What I'm calling the Pnimius versus the Chitzenius. And he explains, number one, Shehekdemu Saponim HaMistakeles B'mayim. B'hem. The image of the countenance which looks into the water, Nidas B'mayim, is seen in the water, which is Halom Ulmato L'mayla, that's an impression from a lower level to a higher level, Atzilus to Ein Seif. And then in Ein Seif you have Sfiras. And number two, Shehekdemu HaNidas B'mayim, that the countenance which is now part of the Mayim, which in the Nimshal is part of the Pshitas of Ein Seif, is Nidis Achakach, the Ha'adam. HaMistakel is shown back down, so to speak, to the person who's looking into that countenance. In other words, Atzilus, that's looking into the Pshitas of Ein Seif, which is Amshacham or Maila Lamata from the top down. So the Rebbe is emphasizing that when you look at the water and the water gives back to you, the water is not giving back to you what you gave the water. The water is giving back to you what is the waters. And the nimshal is going to be that when the Sfiras of Adam Ha'elyon look into the Pshitas of Ein Seif, they impress Sfiras into the Ein Seif, which now becomes called Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes. And when the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes give back those Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes to the Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos, they're not giving back what it received from Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos, they're giving back what is the Ein Seif, which is much deeper and much edeler. What I am insisting on calling and explaining as a chitzenius and a pnimis, like I said to you before, as if there's two seder ishtalshalos, a chitzenius seder ishtalshalos and a pnimis seder ishtalshalos. Now I mentioned before footnote 30, and if you read footnote 30, you can say that, as they say in English, I'm beating a kettle. My entire hypothesis is discredited. Because the Rebbe asks the question, I read it before, I'm reading it again. The Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes come before the Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos. So if the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes come before the Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos, how can the Esses Sfiras HaGeluyos be the source of the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzes? The answer is, in other words, when the Eibishter created the world, before the Eibishter created the world, all of Seder Ishtalshos existed, Kolol Ba'atzmosei, including the lowest madrege, the other matachtein, and the appearance of Sfiras in Oid comes from the other matachtein and the Adam Ha'elyon, the way he was Minei Ubei, it was one with Atzma Saint Seif, and that's where you have Sfiras in it. But it doesn't undermine the way I'm teaching the Maamar. I'm perhaps making it a little bit too materialistic. I'm trying to describe it as if it's two Seder Ishtalshalos that happen chronologically separately. First there's the Chitzenius Deke Ishtalshalos, where you have a Metzias of Sfiras, a Metzias of Kalim and so on. And then you have a Pnimius of Ishtalshalos, where the Oid is Poshet and so on and so forth. But what the Rebbe is saying is that both of these happen at the same time, but it's still true that one is a Chitzonius and one is a Pnimius. One is external, one is internal. And the difference between the Chitzonius and the Pnimius is the one I've been giving you last week and this week. That the Chitzonius is that in the Eid there's already a connection to Sfiris. And in the Pnimius, the Eid is not connected to Sfiris. Faket, the whole idea is that the Sfiris are imprinted on the Pshitas of Ein Seif, and the Pshitas of Ein Seif is reciprocated back to us. Now, this is not yet our subject. We're going to be delving into this in a later class much more elaborately. In other words, if you're not clear on what I meant when I spoke about the two concepts as a Sfiris HaGenuz, just wait. We're going to be revisiting it, but I will admit now that I don't understand it. I don't know how I'm going to explain it, but amidst Hashem, when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. So what do we have so far in the Maamar? We have basically three readings on the pasuk Kamayim Aponim Leponim Kein Leiv Adam Alad. In the first reading, Kamayim Aponim Leponim is a mashal, and Kein Leiv Adam Alad is a nimshal, talking about two physical people. In the second reading, Kamayim Aponim Leponim is a mashal, and Kein Leiv Adam Alad doesn't only mean two physical people; it means two phenomena of Adam Atacht and Adam Elyon, the physical person, the physical man, and the supernal man. And then we have the third reading where Kamayim Aponim Leponim itself is a nimshal. That not only is the idea of Leiv Adam Ala Adam understood spiritually, mystically, Lamaila, but Kamayim Aponim Leponim is also understood this way. That Atzilus impresses itself upon the Ein Seif, and that's how the Ein Seif is Megala Sfiris from Lamaila Lamato. So we have three understandings of Kamayim Aponim Leponim, Kein Leiv Adam Ala Adam. And of course they're not contradictory, they're loizu afzu, they're mutually inclusive. All are true. Kamayim Aponim Leponim is a mashal about two physical people. Kamayim Aponim Leponim is a mashal about Adam Atach and Adam Elyon, and Kamayim Aponim Leponim is itself a nimshal. But now comes a question. The Rebbe says the mizeh shenemar Kamayim Aponim Leponim Kein Leiv Adam Ala Adam. Yeah, just like the water reflects the face that looks into it, so too the heart of man reflects the heart that looks into it. Mashma, it's indicative, the form of the pasuk suggests, the inyan mayim aponim leponim, the idea that a face is reflected back from the water that it looks into, is pashut yeser, is easy to understand. In other words, it's a mashal. Me'in leiv adam ala adam, the way a heart reflects a heart, because that's the nimshal. So in the first reading of this pasuk, where Kamayim Aponim Leponim was only a mashal, there was no problem. In the second reading of this pasuk, where Kamayim Aponim Leponim was only a mashal, there's no problem. But in the third reading of this pasuk, that Kamayim Aponim Leponim is a nimshal, we have a gavaldik kasha. Why? If Mayim means Ein Seif, and Ponim means as a Sfiris of Atzilus, says the Rebbe, it should be Keleiv ha'adam al ha'adam kein ha'mayim Ponim Leponim. Why? Because Adam Atachten and Adam Elyon, Asiya and Atzilus are much closer than Atzilus and Ein Seif. So the mashal should be from Asiya to Atzilus, and the nimshal should be from Atzilus to Ein Seif. The distance, the lack of relativism, closeness between the form of Ponim of a face which goes on Atzilus, L'gabe Pshitos Maim, the plainness of water which goes on the Pshitos of Ein Seif, who harbe yesir, is far more distant, is far greater, me'ha'ein arech, from the distance, shalatzir the adam atachten, of the tzir, the countenance of the man below, l'gabe yatzir the adam elyon, the form of the man above, in other words, asiyah and atzilus. And he brings in the bracket from the pardes, k'mayim erayadu, it's well known, quote, yeser mish'ein arech, asiyah l'gabe atzilus, greater than the distance between Asiya and Atzilus is Ein Reich Atzilus Lagabi Ein Seif, is the distance between Atzilus and Ein Seif. And the emes of this statement is a shtikel achidish. Why? Because Asiya is Gashmias, Asiya is Chumris, Asiya is Klipa, Atzilus is Alakus. And nevertheless we say there's a greater closeness between Asiya and Atzilus than between Atzilus and Ein Seif. Now the fact that Asiya is Klipa and Atzilus is Alakus and Ein Seif is Alakus is a problem. But certainly from the aspect of the tzir, this is a tzir and this is a tzir, as opposed to the other, which is this is a tzir and this is a pshitus. V'al pi zeh, therefore says the Rebbe, zeh, the fact, shayadei Allah asman, the idea that the arouser from below, that means from Atzilus, which is Eses Sfiris, to Ein Seif, which is Poshet, Nasetzir, the Sfiris, Be'ed Ein Seif, creates a form of Sfiris in the Eid Ein Seif, Hu L'cha'oira Chidush Godel Harbe Yoser, it's a far greater Chidush, Mizeh, from the idea, Shahatzir, the other Matach, the form of the man below, that means the physical person, Nase, impresses upon itself, and of course it causes the ultimate reciprocity, but Adam Ha'elyon in the man above and from the man above. In other words, you cannot have a mashal which explains a nimshal when the mashal is harder to understand than the nimshal. And if kamayim aponim leponim is not only a physical mashal, but it's talking about the idea that Atzilus impresses itself upon the Ein Seif, and Ein Seif reciprocates and mirrors it back, they have to be the nimshal. Because Adam and Adam are a lot closer than Adam Ein Seif. Even if Adam and Adam are Adam Atacht and Adam of Ein Seif, and Adam Ha'elyon and Ein Seif are both Ein Seif, the distance is still greater. And the question therefore is, the fact is, and the Pasuk says, Kamayim aponim leponim, just like the face of Atzilus shows itself to the Pshitas of Ein Seif and is mirrored back, Cain, so too, Leiva Adam lo Adam, the face of Asiya, of Adam Atachtan, looks into the face of Atzilus and is mirrored back. And the Rebbe says, Mashma, the form of the Pasuk indicates the Inyan Mayim aponim leponim upashat yesef. The notion that the water will reflect the face that looks into it is easier to understand than Adam Atachtan and Adam Ha'elyon reflecting one another. It's a Kavaldik Akash. Now, in the first class that I gave you 2 weeks ago, I told you the answer to this question, the way I understand the Maamar. And of course, the answer to this question is going to appear on page Reish Tzadik in the paragraph that begins with the word Ulahoisef. And the basis for it is going to be Mitzvah Shem on the next page, on page Reish Pei Vav. And the Nekuda is that Leiva Adam El Ha'adam doesn't only mean Adam Atacht and Adam Ha'elyon. Leiva Adam El Ha'adam means Adam Atacht until Atzmas Hus. Because of the principle of Yisrael, all over Machshava, everything starts with the physical person. So Leiva Adam El Ha'adam doesn't mean how Adam Atacht is reflected only in Atzilus. It's Leiva Adam Atacht as reflected in Atzilus and in Ein Seif and in Ak and Lifnei Atzimtzum. And therefore, actually, Kamayim aponim leponim is the mashal that Atzilus reflects itself of the Ein Seif, and Ein Seif reciprocates back. From Tzir to Pshitas is the mashal. And Asiya is the nimshal, because Asiya is relating to things which are much, much higher than the Pshitas of the Ein Seif, as understood in the first half of the Pasuk, Kamayim aponim leponim. And like I told you, we're going to get to these things later on. Okay? So in the meantime, we have a kasha. And the kasha is, Kamayim aponim leponim is a meeting between Ein Seif and Tzir. Ken Leiva Adam al Adam is a meeting between a lower Tzir and a higher Tzir. How can the meeting of Ein Seif and Pshitas be the mashal, and the meeting of one Tzir and another Tzir be the nimshal? It should be the other way around. That's the kasha. So the Rebbe continues in Sifei and he says, you could answer this perhaps by explaining it Pashat b'Pashtas. A physical, going back to the physical mashal. Behegden, by prefacing that the reason why when you look into water, you see the countenance. You see yourself, you see your countenance reflected back. What you're looking into them. Who the reason for this is water is a substance which is pure and see-through, transparent. In other words, it has no predisposition, it has no color. Which is of course very different when you look at something that does have a predefinition and a form. Hatzir, Hagavan, Shaladovar, the image or the color of that thing is seiser, conflicts, contradicts, Hatzir, Shalaponim, Shemistakel. It offsets the face of the one looking into it. In other words, you see yourself in water because water doesn't look like anything. You don't see yourself in a wall that's made of red paint or green paint because the image of the wall contradicts your own image. So in the mashal of Kamayim aponim leponim, there's one more added point, which is that the only reason you see yourself is because water has no prior countenance. The Rebbe says, V'lachein, and accordingly, ha'inyan d'Kamayim aponim leponim. The idea that when you look into water, you see your face, physically. In other words, that by the spheres of Atzilus, being raised upwards towards the pshitas of Ein Seif, they're imprinted upon the Ein Seif, and the Ein Seif reflects the spheres back. Says the Rebbe, who Pashat Yesir is simpler to understand than a heart reflecting a heart. In other words, what the Rebbe is suggesting in his answer is maybe, perhaps, K'mayim Apanim L'Panim is a higher concept in Kabbalah. And Leiv Adam Al Adam is an easier concept in Kabbalah. Because Mayim Apanim L'Panim is the meaning between Ein Seif and Pshitas. And Leiv Adam Al Adam is the meaning between one tzir and another tzir. I'm sorry, K'mayim Apanim L'Panim is the meaning between Sfiras and Pshitas. And Leiv Adam Al Adam is the meaning between tzir and tzir. But in the Mashal Hagashmi, in the physical Mashal, K'mayim Apanim L'Panim is much closer than Leiv Adam Al Adam. In other words, the Rebbe is suggesting is, you're right, Takeh, that in the Nimshal it's hard to understand how K'mayim Apanim L'Panim could be a Mashal, because Ein Seif and Sfiras are further apart than Asiyah and Atzilas. But when you think about just in very physical terms, K'mayim Apanim L'Panim is very easy to understand. And the reason K'mayim Apanim L'Panim works is when you look into water, you see yourself, because water has no prior definition. And Al Derech Zeh Kein Leiv Adam Al Adam. So the Rebbe is suggesting this may be the reason why K'mayim Apanim L'Panim is the Mashal, and Kein Leiv Adam Al Adam is the Nimshal, even though this is higher and this is lower. But this is easy to understand, this is harder to understand. Now I want to throw something in here, which I don't think I talked about it before. And that is that there's a Meir Rambam. The Rambam writes in Hagdama to the Meir Nevuchim that he dafke wrote his Sefer not ala Seder. He wrote it in a disorderly fashion. He didn't want to write it in an orderly fashion so that it wouldn't be easy to understand what he's doing. So things are a little bit scattered in the Rambam. And you have to sort of piece them together and organize them. One of the most wonderful prakim in the Rambam, I think it's in the first Chelik, which is mostly Pirush HaMilas. But somewhere thrown in there, the Rambam does an analysis of the pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim, where it's written, Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael, that by Matan Torah the Jewish people saw the God of Israel, Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel, V'tachas raglav, and underneath his feet is Kemaisa Livnas Asapir, like the handiwork, like the likeness of Livnas Asapir. Livnas Asapir either means white sapphire or bricks of sapphire. And it finishes Uche'etzem Hashamayim Lateir, as the sky in its etzem, as it is by itself, is tahir, is pure, is see-through, is transparent. So of course the whole concept of seeing Elokei Yisrael is very weird, very strange. How could you see the Eibishter? And of course ultimately the question is, you can't see Hashem. Hashem doesn't look like anything. So Rashi says, Takeh, that was such Livnas Asapir, that in Mitzrayim they worked with bricks. And therefore, when they looked at the Lakus, they saw the Livnas Asapir, which was against the Leveina and the Chema which was made in Mitzrayim. They were seeing themselves. And the Rambam explains it philosophically. The Rambam says, when you look at anything, you see that thing. Except if you look at something which has no pre-image. When you look at something which is totally clear and totally see-through, you end up seeing yourself, like in water. So the pshat in the pasuk, V'yirus Elokei Yisrael v'tachas ragel kamais livnas asapir, uche'etzam hashamayim lateir, that when you look at Elokus, you're going to see Elokus in your own image. You're going to come away with a perception of Elokus that's going to be like you, because since Elokus has no prior definition, you're going to see yourself in Elokus. And of course that's going to be partial, because your perception of Elokus isn't all of Elokus, it's your perception based on what you impressed upon Elokus. Somebody else has a different perception. And that's the pshat in the pasuk. The sky has no color, no definition, so it reflects back wherever it looks into it. And the pshat, they all saw in Elokus themselves, to say it more practically, philosophically, spiritually, they saw their best self in the Eibishter. And there's a sipur with the Rebbe Rashab that I heard from a mashpia, that the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, heard from a mashpia. The Frierdiker Rebbe visited Eretz Yisrael, or maybe it's someplace else, and he had a fabrengen. And the fabrengen was some elder chassidim who were talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe's father, the Rebbe Rashab. And they were mafli, the Rebbe Rashab. They spoke about the Rebbe Rashab gloriously, in a very, very wondrous way. His milas and limud, and in avoida, and in hanhaga, and so on and so forth, and in chassidus. And when they finished, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Do zoktir alts, dem taten wie is in ayetzir." Each one of you is describing my father in your image, but you haven't described my father. A human being cannot describe somebody else. You can only describe somebody else, your perception of that somebody else. And your perception of that somebody else is a reflection not only of what that somebody else is, but it's a reflection of you also. And if that other person is very great, so your limited perception diminishes even more your perception of that other person. And ultimately, when you're talking about pshitos, there's no perception. So what you're perceiving is only your understanding of the pshitos of Ein Sof. And the pshitos of Ein Sof is much, much more. So this is an illustration for this idea of what it means, kamayim aponim laponim. But what the Rebbe is suggesting is, and let's go back to the form, kamayim aponim laponim is a nimshal. Kelei vadim aladim is also a nimshal. And kamayim aponim laponim is a deeper nimshal than lei vadim aladim. It's a higher nimshal than lei vadim aladim. But it's still an easier thing to understand. It's easy to understand because pshitas reflects tzir. It's easy to understand how tzir reflects tzir. This is the proposed answer to the question. And the Rebbe immediately says, Avol biyazeh tzadach l'biyah nesef. 4 lines from the top of page Reish. But I don't like this teretz. I'm slugging it up, so to speak. This idea that water reflecting a face, which means Ein Sof reflecting Atzilus, is a mushal. And Asir reflecting Atzilus reflecting Asir is a nimshal. Because physically, water in its plainness reflects a face more easily than a heart reflects a heart. Doesn't make sense when you think about it in terms of the nimshal of kamayim aponim laponim. Why? And it is a fact that something with no predefinition, and it's plain, therefore nidim kol hatziyurim, you see every image, you look into it, will show it, it will reflect back. Says the Rebbe, however, udafke, it's only kishahagavnim, v'adavar pashat, when the image, the countenance, the form, the colors, and the plain, so to speak, mirror is be'esei asur, go in the same category. Hainu, sheshneim heim gashmim, they're both physical. For example, hamayim v'haponim shemistaklim beh. Water is physical, a human face is physical. The meeting between a human face and water is the meeting of one physical thing and another physical thing, so the water reflects it back. Or sheshneim ruchnim, it would also work if both were spiritual. Bracket, al derech svara pshuta, like for example a theory, which is so transcendent, so simple, shemitzat pshitusa, because of its plainness, it's yechelel, it's tied, it takes on both forms, hein b'tzir de chesed, v'hein b'tzir de gevura, both the form of chesed, as well as the form of gevura. And this is the mashal that I told you last week, the Esesfiras and Eres, Achalifu Dechtayu from Shmaya and Avtayin. They taught one thing. Hillel understood their teachings in a way of chesed, Shammai understood their teachings in a way of gevura, but they themselves didn't say either, they included both. Sheshneim, that both Hasvara v'Atziyurim, the Chesed, the Gevura, the theory and the image of Chesed, the Gevura, and Ruchnim are spiritual. So when you're talking about a face and water, or you're talking about ideas and leanings to Chesed and Gevura, that works because they're both physical, they're both spiritual. It says there, Avo. However, I'm 8 lines into page Reish Pehei, Ein Shayach, it's impossible, Shedavar HaPoshet, something which is plain. Yiyunirim tziyurim, you should see reflected images, shemisug acher. They're in a completely different category. Eses Firas of Atzilus and Ein Sof have nothing in common. The Rebbe is going to say momentarily the terminology. Eses Firas of Atzilus have a geder, have a definition, have a limit. Ein Sof has no definition, no limit, it's Pasha. And how could Eses Firas of Atzilus be reflected in Pshitas of Ein Sof? Moreover, that the reflection of the Eses Firas of Atzilus, the Pshitas of Ein Sof, becomes the mashal, and the nimshal is kein leiv adam alad. K'mei, for example, svara sichlis, an intellectual idea, shein shayach sheyitztayed b'leiven ve'edim gashmiyim, you cannot have an intellectual idea which is reflecting itself in colors, physical colors, because they're not in the same realm. V'chein le'idach, the opposite is also true, shein shayach shebemayim gashmiyim, it's impossible that physical waters, you need him to you should be able to see not physical colors, but metaphysical emotions of kindness and severity, or inexactitude, because they're 2 different worlds. So the question is, v'kiven she'ein seifu mufsha, since the level of Ein Sof in its pshitas. And like I suggested earlier, perhaps it's like even Seif of Kalam. Me'ametzi is the gashmis is altogether removed from physical things. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. Kiven she'ein seifu mufsha. Whereas Ein Sof is transcendent, is removed. Leirak me'atzir, the spheres, not only from the image of the spheres, the form of the spheres. Elagam me'ametzi is the spheres, the very existence of spheres. So from these words you see that Metzias of Sfiris is more edel than Tzir of Sfiris. And my suspicion is that Tzir of Sfiris is you have 10 different Eiris, and Metzias of Sfiris means that the Eir is only one Eir, but has the possibility to be mislabish and take on a Tzir from the Caleb. But Ein Seif is removed from both of these images. The Kmei She'inyan Ruchni, just like a spiritual thing, is Mufshat Ma'ametzias, the Gashmis, is removed from a physical thing. Al derech zebeniel ein seif shu mufshat ma'ametzias des Sfiris. Even though this is a lakus, this is a lakus. The distance between the lakus of pshitas and the lakus of Sfiris is much greater than the distance between the lakus of Sfiris and the tziyur in a siyur. Ki ametzias des Sfiris, the form of Sfiris, the reality of Sfiris, same change vasam begedet have a certain criteria. Chachma bina v'chul. Even Shein Seif Posher B'Tachas Apshitas, and Ein Seif is absolutely plain. Vein Shayach Beit Tfisa. There's no way for anybody to have a grasp, to have access to have a sense of the Pshitas of Ein Seif. How do you move? Shat Me'ametzias des Sfiris. There's a move from the Metzias of Sfiris, from the Gather of Sfiris, which is very easy to grasp because they have a tzir. And therefore the question is, Eich Shayach, how can it be? Shayadei Allah Asman, that from Atzilus reflecting itself back against the Ein Seif, Yitztayra be Sfiris, there should be Sfiris in the Pshitas of Ein Seif. And of course the real kasha is not the Etzem Ha'inyan, Eich Shayach. How is it possible that you should have Sfiris in the Pshitas of Ein Seif because there's Sfiris in Atzilus? But why it's the mashal? Why Kamayim upon him is the mashal and Kein Leiva Adam Ladam is the nimshal? V'habir bazeh. And the Rebbe begins to answer this last question. And of course the question was, how could Kamayim Aponim Laponim, which is about a meeting between Ein Seif and Sfiris, be the mashal, and Kein Leiva Adam Ala Adam, which is a meeting between Asiya and Atzilus, be the nimshal? So the Rebbe says the answer can be understood by prefacing first. Al Pi Hayadu, it is well known. All of Seder Ishtalshalus, all of Kabbalah is built on the principle of Mashpia Makabal, right? Everybody knows this. It all works. It's a series of interfaces, of meetings. One gives and one takes. And in the meeting between a giver and a receiver, the giver also takes and the taker also gives, and so on. But the whole of Ishtalshalus is a series of Mashpia of Zachar and Nekeva, Mashpia Makabal. But there's two basic halves to this process of Mashpia Makabal. The first is that the Eibush is the Mashpia, and we're the Makabal. Isarusa del Yela, Isarusa del Latat. Whatever the Eibush does is reflected by us. But there's the opposite truth. That Isarusa del Latata, Isarusa del Yela. We do is reflected in the Eibush. Da, ma lamayla mimoch. Whatever happens, lamayla comes from us. And of course, this phenomena is interesting. Why? Because this phenomena says that we can do things that touch and affect Elokus. So the Rebbe says, Zeh sheserusa deletata, the fact that an arousal from below of any sort, me'ireres u'mamsheches seserusa deletata, wakes up and brings down an arousal from above. Gam iserusa deletata shebchinas adam elyon atzilus. Even something as simple, in quotes, as an arousal from Atzilus to Asiya. In other words, the idea that what we do affects on high and is reciprocated back to us from the bottom up and then from the top down is true from Asiya to Atzilus, and according to this Maamar, it's true also from Atzilus to Ein Seif. So all of these examples, all of these circumstances where something that happens below touches and affects what's happening above, says the Rebbe, who makes no sense. Why? Obviously, why? The kivan shenivra hu ben rechel gabebeli, a creation is not comparable to the Creator at all, and the Eibishter is above, and we're below, and Eibishter linus is above, and we're below. Hare api seichel, logically ein mokim. There's no room for the idea shavedas hanevroyim tifel to Eder and tifel shine ben yaram shalamayla. Logically, it makes no sense that anything we do should matter to the Eibishter at all. Nothing we ever did on whatever level in any way, shape, or form should have any impact on the Eibishter at all. And yet, the very design of Seder Ishtalshalus is Mashpia Makabel, both from the top down, the Serusa del Yela, Serusa del Latata, as well as from the bottom up, Serusa del Latata, Serusa del Yela. Now, the first half of the equation is not hard to understand. Hashem gives and we react. But the second half of the equation, the Rebbe says, makes no sense. that we should be able to do something down here and it should touch and affect what's going on upstairs in any level makes no sense. So why is it this way? Ella the teretz is it works. What we do touches God because He wants to be touched. What we do arouses a reciprocal effect or a response from heaven to earth only because He decided that it should be this way. That this was decided in the beginning of Seder Ishtalshlus and was called the seminal, the initial thought of the world of Adam Kadmon, which is Lefnei Atzilus, higher than Atzilus. And the impression you get from this Maamar is that it's not only higher than Atzilus, it's higher than the Ein Seif, which is included in the Pasuk Hamayim Aponim Lepon. And what Kvayochel was resolved in Machshava Gduma V'Ak, that Shayadei Avedis HaNevraim, the work that people do down here, Tia Hisedidus, V'Hamshachas HaNyonim D'Atzilus. There will be a reciprocal awakening and a drawing down of ideas from Atzilus. So even the meeting between Asiya and Atzilus, which is a meeting of Adam HaTachton and Adam HaElyon, isn't logical by itself. It's only logical once we accept the principle of Kachal B'Machshav. This is what he wants. So the Rebbe continues and he says, 5 lines on the bottom page, Reish Pei Hey, if the meeting between Asiya and Atzilus and the reciprocal involvement of Asiya and Atzilus and Asiya, that when we do an act, it touches Atzilus Kayachal, and Atzilus gives us back, is a miracle, is only because Kachal Machshava, how much more so Atzilus and Ein Seif, which are further and further, much further apart. That the idea, the idea that Atzilus, which is Adam, which is a countenance of Sfiris, causes a reflecting of self in the pshitas of Ein Seif and creates an arousal in the pshitas of Ein Seif, b'bchinas mayim al yenim, in the supernal waters, the higher waters. And of course over here, mayim al yenim doesn't mean Atzilus. Mayim al yenim means Ein Seif. Ba'pshitas the Ein Seif, the plainness of Ein Seif, shalamaylo b'chinas Adam, which is above Adam HaElyon, it's only lefi shekein Allah b'reteni yizbarach. This is what He willed. We can touch Atzilus, not because we can actually affect Atzilus, because Hashem wants us to touch Atzilus and allows us to affect Atzilus and helps us affect Atzilus. Similarly, the idea that Atzilus touches the pshitas of Ein Seif is because the Eibishter allows and inspires and helps Atzilus touching and affecting and causing a reciprocal effect from Ein Seif to Atzilus. Ba'atzmus, it Ein Seif shalamai lagama b'chinas mayim. And the source of this kachal b'machshava is higher than the lower world and the higher world. In other words, if Asiya is the lower world and Atzilus is the higher world, the kachal b'machshava is higher than Asiya and higher than Atzilus. If Atzilus is the lower world and Ein Seif, the pshitas of Ein Seif is the higher world, the kachal b'machshava is again higher than both. So the Rebbe says, before I answer the question of how kamayim aponim leponim can be the mashal, and kein leva adam la'adam can be the nimshal, you must understand that the only reason Seder Ishtalshlus works in reverse, in other words, the only reason Seder Ishtalshlus works in Eir Chesed, in Mulmata Lamayla, in Avodah, from the lowest level to the highest level, is because He wanted it to. V'yesh leiman. And now the Rebbe adds a detail, in addition to what we just said, that any reversal of Hisaidinus, in other words, any time there's an awakening from the bottom up, from Asiyah to Atzilus, from Atzilus to Ein Seif, it doesn't make sense. It only works because Kach Olah B'Machshava. Says the Rebbe, we add something else. And what is that? The fact that he had this ratz, that what we do should touch, what we do Lamata should touch Atzilus. And what Kvayachal Atzilus does Lamayla should touch the Pshita of Ein Seif. That Shayadei Allah Asman, that through the arousal from below, the Bechinas Ponim, in other words, Adam HaTachton and Adam HaElyon, and then, as a spheres of Atzilus and Ein Seif, Tiyam Shachem Bechinas Mayim Al Yenim, it should reciprocate that Mayim Al Yenim, and again, Mayim Al Yenim over here doesn't mean Atzilus, as it means in so many other places. Mayim Al Yenim means the Pshitas of Ein Seif. Says the Rebbe, this Kach Olah B'Machshava, the fact that Hashem willed that what we do should affect Atzilus, and what Atzilus does should affect Ein Sof. So his willing it, Ayadei Zeh Nasa Lahem, turn to page Reish Pevov, Shaychos Lebechinas Haponim Shamamshichim Eis. That they have a relationship to the face that's going to look into them. So listen very carefully. There's two types of meetings, right? There's the meeting from Hashem and world, which is called Isarusa de Le'ela, Isarus Latata, from the top down. And there's a meeting of world to Hashem, which is called Isarusa de Latata, Isarusa de Le'ela, an arousal from below, which brings about an arousal from above. The first idea makes sense, because Hashem's the boss. The second idea makes no sense. So why does it work? Because of Kachalab Machshava. So the Rebbe says, in every circumstance of Isarusa de Latata, Isarusa de Le'ela, there's two steps. The whole idea that somebody below can touch an effect, somebody above has two steps. Step number one, that Hashem willed that the effect should take place. And step number two, that the effect should take place in fact. And before the effect takes place, the simple fact that the Eibishter willed that the effect should take place is the beginning of that effect. Look at the words again. Look at the bottom of page Reish Pei, second line from the bottom, V'yesh leimar, Da'yadei sha'olah b'tzein yizbarach. Since, inasmuch as the Eibishter willed, Sha'idei Allah asman de b'chinas ponim, the arousal from below, which in this case means Atzilus, as it's impressing itself on the Pshitas of Ein Sof, and the Pshitas of Ein Sof is reciprocating itself back, Tiyam shacha mi b'chinas mayim al-yenim, the Pshitas of Ein Sof should give back from the Esesphiras Hagenuzes, Esesphiras Hagenuzes. Says the Rebbe, you must understand, the halas, the olah b'ritzeine, the kach olah b'machshava, the fact that he wanted that what we do should affect Lamaila, and what Atzilus is should affect Ein Sof, Ayadei Zeh Nasa Lahem, it causes that there should be a relationship between Ein Sof and Atzilus, and between Atzilus and Asiya, that there should be shaychas, a relatedness, lebechinas haponim, shemamshich ameisim, to the face which is lower than them, which is imprinting himself upon them. Bidugmas mayim kipshutim, as is the case in physical water. What do we know about physical water? About physical water, we know sheheim v'aponim shemistaklim b'hem beis yasug. The reason when you look into water, you see yourself, is first of all because water has no color, therefore you see whatever you show it. But it also works as water and a face are in the same level, same sug. So when the Eibishter willed that what we do should affect in him, that he should reciprocate, he was in effect willing that we should be in the same sug. The idea that Hashem decided that Ein Sof should be affected by Atzilus and reflected makes Ein Sof, so to speak, and in some way on the same madrege as the Esesphiras. And that's why the Esesphiras touch it and affect an imprint on it. In other words, before the Kachala b'machshava, there's no relationship between Ein Sof and Atzilus, and no relationship between Atzilus and Asiya. The Kachala b'machshava makes a relationship. Before there's the Kamayim aponim laponim, before there's the Kain leiv adam ala adam. And the relationship is that Ein Sof is in some way connected to the panim which is going to look into it. And accordingly, the idea that when Atzilus looks into Ein Sof and impresses on the pshitas of Ein Sof Esesphiras, and then the Esesphiras are reflected back to Atzilus, that because Atzilus, which is below and has Sfiras, looks into the pshitas of Ein Sof, which is above, and impresses itself upon the pshitas of Ein Sof, then the pshitas of Ein Sof reflects itself back on the Esesphiras of Atzilus. Says the Rebbe, who leirak hiseidus. It's not only that the Atzilus is awakening Ein Sof to give it back Sfiras. Shetiyam shachas Ein Sof b'Sfiras. They should have Ein Sof in the Sfiras. Elagam, but also sheba pshitos the Ein Sof atzmei. Then the plainness of the Ein Sof itself, nasa inyanas Sfiras, the concept of Sfiras, which he calls Eses Sfiras Hagenuzes, the 10 plain Sfiras, b'kedugmas mayim kepshutam, like water itself. Shenidas behem atzmam, that the countenance appears in the water itself. Haponim behem stakelas behem, the face which looks into them. Really, what the Rebbe is doing here is trying to speak out of two sides of his mouth, and he's speaking out of two sides of his mouth because in the Nimshal they're both true. When you look into water, you see yourself, right? Do you exist in the water? you don't really exist in the water, right? There's only water. Vaharaya, you walk away, it's gone. When you look into the water, you see yourself. So the Rebbe argues, when you look in the water and you see yourself, on the one hand, because you looked into the water, you're seeing yourself. On the other hand, you're not in the water. So if you're not in the water, what are you seeing? You're seeing the water. In other words, the face that comes back to you isn't your face, it's the water's face. And the water doesn't have a face. So it's the way in the pshitas of Ein Seif, somehow, in the pshitas of a water, there's somehow a face. Now in the mashal, I don't know how it works. In the nimshal, I don't either know how it works. But in the nimshal, it's truer. The Eibishter's kacholo b'machshava, that the Eid Ein Seif should receive a face and give it back, gives the Ein Seif a relationship to the face. Consequently, when as a spheres of Atzilus look, so to speak, at the pshitas of Ein Seif, and the pshitas of Ein Seif gives back as a spheres of Atzilus, the Rebbe says you're not seeing the as a spheres of Atzilus being mirrored back. You're seeing the as a spheres of the pshitas of Ein Seif. The two possibilities are that when the spheres of Atzilus look at the pshitas of Ein Seif, they get back the spheres of Atzilus. And the second possibility is when the spheres of Atzilus look at the pshitas of Ein Seif, the pshitas of Ein Seif gives itself back to the spheres of Atzilus. And the Rebbe's argument is that the latter is the case. The second is the idea, not the first. Why? Because since there's a kachal b'machshava, the only reason the pshitas of Ein Seif reflect the spheres of Atzilus is because the Eibishter willed it. That means Hashem willed that in the pshitas of Ein Seif there should be ba'isei asug, there should be a relationship with Spheres. So when the pshitas of Ein Seif reflects back to the spheres of Atzilus, it's not the spheres of Atzilus that is reflecting back, but its own pshitas that is reflecting back. In other words, here you begin to hear Lashon Shmiya, the nature of the Esesphiras Hagnuzas that are being described in this Maamar, that involve the maximum contradiction, the maximum duality. There's Sphiras on the one hand and the Pshitas on the other. Because the Eid Ein Seif is not reflecting back what it received, what was shown to it. The Eid Ein Seif is reflecting back what it is. And because what it is based on Hashem's Ratz, and therefore what you're getting is the Pshitas of the Ein Seif. Let's read it again. Second line from the top of the page. V'lachein, and accordingly, when the Spheres of Atzilus, which are below, impact the Pshitas of the Ein Seif, which is above, and the Pshitas of Ein Seif reflects back as the Spheres to Atzilus, says Rebbe like this. It's loirak, it's not only option A, that Hiseidus, an awakening, Shatia Hamshachas Eid Ein Seif, B'Sfiras. You don't want the Pshitas of Ein Seif to come into Sfiras, meaning to say that in the Ein Seif there are no Sfiras, and the Sfiras is only in Atzilus. Elagam, but rather Shabeh HaPshitas the Eid Ein Seif, that in the plainness of the Eid Ein Seif, Atzma itself, Nasa Inyan Sfiras. In the Pshitas of Ein Seif there's a concept of Sfiras. In other words, Es Sfiras Hagenuzis, and the Sfiras, as they're part of the Pshitas of the Ein Seif, is what's coming down into Atzilus. And again, later in the Maamar, this idea is going to be emphasized more and more. But the point is that there's two opposites here. On the one hand, it's Sfiras. On the other hand, it's the Pshitas of Ein Seif. Because the Sfiras that are reflected back from Ein Seif to Atzilus are not the Esesphiras of Atzilus, but they're the Esesphiras as they're part of the Pshitas of the Ein Seif. So let me say this. The difficult concept in this Maamar is understanding how you can have Esesphiras that are both Pshitas and Tzir at the same time. I'm never going to be able to explain it to you because I don't understand it fully. But it's not today's discussion. Let's leave it for later shir. What I do want to talk about is the concept of Halo Asman. Let's push it, do the math. We have 3 levels here. And in the next paragraph, we're going to have a 4th level. The three levels that we have here are, number one, the Pshitas of Ein Seif. The Pshitas of Ein Seif has nothing to do with Sfiras, it's Pshitas of Ein Seif. Number two, how Hashem wills that in the Pshitas of Ein Seif, there should be as a Sfiras. When Hashem willed that in the Pshitas of Ein Seif there should be as a Sfiras, there's no Sfiras in the Pshitas of Ein Seif. It's just as Pashut as it was before. But it's been brought into the realm of called Oisei Hasug. And number three, when the Sfiras of Atzilus look at the Pshitas of Ein Seif and impress in them Sfiras, this is as a Sfiras HaGenuzos. Let's say it one more time. Level number one, the Pshitas of Ein Seif, which is completely removed from the idea of Sfiras. Number two, how the Pshitas of Ein Seif, there's a Kacholab Machshava, that there should be an effect of Eserusa Latata, Eserusa D'Liela. And number three, how Esesiris Agenudus exists in the Pshitas of Ein Seif because of the principle of Kamayim Aponim Laponim. And let's now move on and read Sivvav. V'yesh Leimer. We had a question. What was our question? Our question was, how can Sfiras of Atzilus touch Pshitas of Ein Seif and get the Pshitas of Ein Seif to reflect as the Sfiras of Atzilus back? We haven't answered the question yet, but we've begun answering the question. How did we begin answering the question? By introducing ourselves to the idea that a Serusa D'Latata, Serusa D'Le'ela never makes sense. And the only reason is Serusa D'Latata, Serusa D'Le'ela works is because Kachala, right? Hashem wants that what we do should matter to Him. Hashem wants that what Atzilus does should matter to Ein Seif, and that's why it matters. So now the Rebbe adds another step to this itself. Da'atam al zeh, the cause for this, al zeh sha'ala b'ritzeni, that Hashem willed, sha'amshacha de l'mayla serusa de l'yel, that what comes from heaven to earth should be tihiyeh al yedei iserusa de l'tata dafke, based on an arousal from below dafke. Now this, what I'm about to say, may be too dividing, too detailed, but I'm going to say it nevertheless, even though it's probably a little idler that I'm saying it. But I'm saying this because I want to emphasize the point that I made in the last class about Pnimius and Chitzenius. There's two types, two levels of Hashpah U'Ma'ala Lamata. The first type of Hashpah U'Ma'ala Lamata is where the Eibishter created the world. The second type of Hashpah U'Ma'ala Lamata is how Hashem gives the world based on what the world gives Him. The first is called Chitzenius and the second is called Pnimius. The way the Eibishter gives the world by himself, it says, this is how the Eibishter creates the world. And the idea that everything that the Eibishter gives us is based on what we do is a deeper concept, is a Pnimiistic concept. And again, arguably it's not two steps, it's two insights. But even if it's only two insights, this is a Chitzenius, this is a Pnimius. So the Rebbe says, there's a reason for this. Why did the Eibishter make his world that everything that we do should impact what happens above and should be reflected back down? So this Allah b'machshava, this Allah Yisara, this will of Hashem, that everything that happens in Seder Ishtalshlus should reflect itself upon Him and be mirrored back down, is based on another cause. Hu ki Asherish di Yisrael, because the root of the Jewish people, parenthesis, the ikir inyan iserusa de le'ela hu al yedei avedasam shel Yisrael. That the true idea of an arousal from below is based on people, and the word avoida, work, right? When Atzilus reflects itself off Ein Seif, Atzilus isn't working, Atzilus is existing. But when a human being reflects itself off what's above itself, and it reciprocated back down, that's through avoida. So the work that a person does in this world, so to speak, after Hashem creates us, we serve Him, and after Hashem creates us and we serve Him, what we do is reflected back from heaven to earth based on what we did. And the Rebbe says, Hasherish di Yisrael, the root of the Jewish people, which is Ikir Inyan Esarusa de L'Yela, the primary Derusa de L'Yela, because it's not just that Jews exist, but it's Avidasam Shal Yisrael is Ba'atzmos, because the Yid touches Atzmos Amos. And this is even higher. This is even higher. In other words, the reason what we do matters to God is because the Jew matters to God. And it's two steps. Everything that happens in a lower level of Seder Ishtalshalos touches and affects a reciprocal effect from a higher level of Seder Ishtalshalos, because Hashem willed it. And why did Hashem will it? Because Hashem favors the Jew. What Jew? The physical Jew in the physical world doing physical Torah mitzvahs, as I explained to you in my first class when we read this page. And the physical Jew in the physical world doing physical Torah mitzvahs, which is the true idea of avodah, of serving Hashem, and Esusa de Latata, is the reason Hashem willed that there should be this phenomena of reciprocity. It's Esusa de Latata, it's Esusa de Layela. So now you have a fourth level. Let me talk you through it, okay? But I'll go backwards. The lowest level is Esas Feres Agnuzis. Esas Feres Agnuzis means after what happens below imprints itself on the Ein Seif, and the Ein Seif reflects back Esas Feres. That's the lowest level. The second level is that Hashem willed that what happens below should imprint itself on Ein Seif and be reflected back down. But in the will, there is not yet the Esas Feres Agnuzis, it's just the will of Esas Feres Agnuzis. The third level is the Madrega of Ein Seif, which is above that will. The Madrega of Ein Seif, which is above that will, has nothing to do with this idea of Esrus Tlata Esrus Liyel. And the highest level is Hashem Himself. And Hashem Himself is touched by a physical Jew. So think about it, yeah? If you have four levels, the lowest level is the way Ein Seif has been affected by the world. The second level is how Hashem wills that the Ein Seif should be affected by the world. The third level is how the Ein Seif is unaffected by the world. And the highest level is how Hashem Himself is touched by a Yid. So there's a clear irony here, right? What's the irony? That the second level, which is of course lower than the first level, is above anything that a Yid can touch, that the world can touch. And the highest level, Kvayachal, the Eibishter Himself, is affected by a physical Yid. Now the Hasbara Shabbat is complicated, and I don't know if I know it correctly, but it's indicative, it's reminiscent of what you have in Hasidus based on a Zoyar, right? The Zoyar discusses, it's brought in Kuntas Mayan, I think in Maimates, discusses whether what we do matters to the Eibishter. And basically there's three levels. The lowest level is what we do matters to the Eibishter in Hishtalshalos. The middle level is what we do does not matter to the Eibishter in higher than Hishtalshalos, and what's called Chitenius Hamakiv, Kachashecha Ka'ira. But on the highest level, in Pnimius Hamakiv, Lahasam La'ela Mota Aksa Di Yisrael, in Pnimius Hamakiv and Atzmus, what a Yid does matter. That's the idea, Hali Och Esav Liyankev, Eyev Yankev, Esav Sanesi. And the same is true here, right? The highest level is the idea that a physical Jew doing physical mitzvahs in the physical world are imprinted in Atzmus and Hussein Tzal Baruch Hu. And this imprint of the physical Yid doing physical mitzvahs in the physical world is imprinted in Atzmus and Hussein Tzal Baruch Hu, is the real source of why what we do matters to the Eibishter. Below that there is Ein Seif, and Ein Seif doesn't care about anything. Below that there is the Kachola B'machshava in the Ein Seif, that there should be Esrus Latata, Esrusa de Le'ela. And below that is how the Esrusa de Le'ela, Esrusa de Latata, Esrusa de Le'ela actually happens, that the Atzilus reflects off in the Ein Seif and the Esas Fidas Agnuzis. So now let's reread what we read last time. Mr. Magid says, Bepirush Maamar Azal, based on the Medrash, that the Medrash says, Yisrael, Ola B'machshava, Yidden, entered into Hashem's thought. And it's brought in Marichasidus, that means Madregal Yenesh HaB'machshava. Shukamash, Adam, it's like, for example, a person, Sheesh Leiban, that has a son, Shemitzad Lavasei love, because you love your son so much, Nech, Katsuras, Aben B'machshavte, the image of the son is branded into the part of the memory of the father in such a way and in such a part, in such a place, that he'll never forget it. But by a human being, you cannot visualize your child until the child is actually born, because before he's born, you don't know what he looks like. He doesn't exist. However, when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the past and the future are the same. Accordingly, the imprint of a physical Yid doing physical mitzvahs in a physical world is imprinted, is branded into the etzem of the Eibishter's thought, so to speak, gam kedem shenivru, before they were created, before they exist. They're, so to speak, a part of the Eibishter himself. And because a physical yid doing physical mitzvahs in the physical world are nechak and tzuras ha'atzmos, therefore there's an idea that the Eibishter wants that what we do should matter to him. So we, so to speak, matter to him twice, right? We matter to him in Mele, and we matter to him beratzen. In atzmos, a yid touches the Eibishter because he's a part of the Eibishter. And in Ein Sof, a yid touches Ein Sof because Hashem willed that we should be able to touch the Ein Sof. But in between those two levels is the Ein Sof, which is, so to speak, lower than the Pshitas of Atzmos, and higher than the place where this will is. So in Atzmos Amhus, a yid touches the Eibishter because he is the Eibishter. And in Ein Sof, there is a concept of Kachol B'Machshava, and because of the Kachol B'Machshava, we touch the Ein Sof, and therefore when there's a reflection of a lower level and a higher level, there's a reciprocal, there's a revealing of Pshitas of Esesfidas from the level of Pshitas of Ein Sof back down into Esesfidas of Atzilus. And then he brings the second example, and again, all of this we learned in the first class. This is also a medrash, that before the Eibishter created the world, Im HaMelech B'Melachtei Yashvu Sham, I'm not quoting the pasuk correctly, but the teichen of the pasuk is that this is the source of the idea that before the Eibishter created the world, he consulted with Yidden. No, before the Eibishter created the world, how could he consult with Yidden who are part of the world? And the answer is there is an idea of Yidden that are part of the Eibishter himself, so to speak. And he says it these words: "Sha'atainug da'kadosh baruch hu ba'avedas tzaddikim." The delight that the Eibishter has in the work of tzaddikim. Hayagam lefnei abriya existed before the Eibishter created the world. Vayedei zeh hayis abriya, and that's the basis for the creation. But the pleasure of the work of Yidden, which existed lefnei abriya, existed always. Why? Because lefnei abriya there's no earlier and there's no later. It's a part of the pshitas of Elokus, the Eibishter himself. And this idea that Avedas HaTzadikim is nechak and the Eibishter lefnei abriya is the basis for the creation itself. And the Rebbe continues, v'kivan, and since Sha'atainug da'avedas Yisrael u'batzmusa yizbarach. In Atzmos itself, there is the delight that the Eibishter gets from Yidden and from Yidden's work. And the idea that in Atzmos itself, the Eibishter gets the delight from Yidden and Yidden's work is a part of Atzmos itself, so to speak. Shalamayla mechol ha'giloyim, l'chein Allah b'tzeini yizbarach gam b'bechinas ha'gilu. Therefore, on a lower level, on a level of Giluy of Eid, there was a will, Sham Shacha v'Agilei de Lamayla, that everything that comes from heaven to earth, to below, Tia de Aveda Davka, based on the work that we do. So, the Rebbe explained how we can affect Ein Sof, and then he explained his explanation of how we can affect Ein Sof. We can affect Ein Sof because there's a Ratzon, and there is a Ratzon because we're one with Atzmos Ein Sof. And then the Rebbe concludes, this works in every example of Esrusa Latata, Esrusa Lielo, Allah man of Sfiris, which is from Atzilus to Ein Sof, Sha'Allah B'Tzeini is that Hashem willed, Sham Shachad Ein Sof, that the bringing forward of Ein Sof from a higher level to a lower level, Tiya Al Yedei Allah man da Sfiris, should depend on the Sfiris from below, touching the Pshitas of Ein Sof and reflecting them back down, is because of Yisrael al b'machshav. It all begins with the idea that he is one with the Meibishter. And al derech zeh gam b'machshav agduma da'ak, which is higher than this madrege. Zeh she'ol b'machshav agduma da'ak. The fact that in the Eibishter, so to speak, seminal thought after the tzimtzum, that the Eibishter decided, resolved, sham shocha de la maila tiyah, aidei iserusat latata davka, everything that happens should begin from below to above, rather than from above to below, is the idea that Hashem willed that we do should touch him. Why did Hashem will that we do should touch him in Ak? It's Kashedish b'Yisrael ba'atzmos Ak, because Yidden are even higher in Atzmos Ak, or Kavua b'Makamacha. There's Esha Ak b'Tziyad Adam is b'Tziyad D'Neshama Yisrael. Shalom Machshav Gduma Ak. We really should have more time for this, and we don't. Umizen Nimshach Gam b'Machshav Ak shebenegei leishtalshlos. This affects that in the level of Chitzenius Ak, in other words, which is connected to worlds. It's also true. Shakol Amshachas. Everything that comes from Ak, Amshacha Matilas Libya, Gam Amshacha Milamal Matilas Atzilus, all depends on the Aveda and Allah Asma. Okay, so I a little bit rushed with the end of the shir, but I believe that the shir was quite clear.